I kind of want to tie back to the root cause. I want everyone thinking about fertility from a root cause perspective. Because when you think about it from a root cause, then you can say, hey, are we getting to the root cause doing this procedure or doing this thing? So first off, like I already mentioned, PCOS is a big one. Now, with infertility, there's usually going to be some level of insulin resistance or blood sugar dysglycemia, meaning your blood sugar is up and down and your body has to make a lot of hormones to regulate that flow of blood sugar. So when your blood sugar goes really high, right, because of excess carbohydrates, imbalanced meals, not enough protein and fat, you're going to surge a whole bunch of insulin to bring the blood sugar back down. Now, in women that tend to be more on the heavier side, usually that blood sugar eventually starts staying higher because that's what diabetes is, right? Chronically high levels of blood sugar. But usually before that, there's some level of reactive hypoglycemia where blood sugar goes up and then crashes down because the body over secretes insulin. And when the cells are still sensitive to insulin, that blood sugar will drop down really, really fast. And then your body has to make a lot of adrenaline and cortisol to bring it back up. Okay. So if we tie in prolactin is going to go high when there's high levels of estrogen. So when we start having more estrogen dominance, okay, first mechanism, how does estrogen dominance happen? Well, it's going to happen one, through exposure of estrogens in the environment. Two, it's going to happen through metabolism of progesterone. So progesterone is a really important progestational, pro-fertility hormone, very important. When we get stressed, we'll actually convert progesterone downstream into cortisol. So when we get chronically stressed, we're going to decrease progesterone. And then number three, high levels of estrogen dominance, that is going to start driving prolactin issues. And when we start burning up dopamine, right? Dopamine is a very important neurotransmitter. Dopamine gets used to make adrenaline. So when we start making a lot of adrenaline and a lot of stress neurotransmitter, dopamine gets used, and dopamine's a tonic inhibitor of prolactin. So imagine you have prolactin and you have dopamine level is like the foot on the brake, right? And as you start depleting your dopamine and you start getting more stress, you're taking your foot off the brake, and what happens to prolactin? It goes up. When prolactin starts to go up, one of the side effects is loss of ovulation, right? You can go amenorrhea. So you have a couple of mechanisms, right? You have this prolactin mechanism from dopamine. You have estrogen dominance, which can affect prolactin as well. You have this infertility through PCOS and insulin resistance and elevation in androgens, right? And then also all of the food components, all of the hormones and the toxins and the pesticides also contribute to that.
Yeah, those are, I would say, the biggest and most important things affecting your average American. There's a couple other small subgroups I want to mention what I've seen with infertility. One being people that are overtraining with exercise. You mentioned the loss of the period. So I had a woman who she was in the small percentage, but we have to talk about the small percentage because, you know, people who are healthy and want to be healthy listen to our podcast. And so there's people that may be overachievers, we'll call them. And so we had a lady that was doing CrossFit like 4 or 5 times a week, 45-minute sessions, and just beating the pavement. Now, typically when someone's doing that, we don't really need to run a hormone profile, but just because I knew that it would increase her compliance, if I told her to stop exercising, she may not listen to me. So we use the testing to prove on paper what we already knew intuitively, which is that she was causing her cycle to be disrupted due to the chronic stress of the overtraining. So when we ran the hormone profile and we showed her what her cortisol looked like, it was basically flatlined except for the time of the day when she did the exercise. She had a mild spike, which is why she felt better. You know, she said, oh, my day's not complete until I exercise. That's because her cortisol was so low. And when she whipped the tired horse, all of a sudden she got this temporary boost of cortisol and adrenaline. She felt normal, and that was it. But the prescription for her to get pregnant was simply just go down in the exercise. I just told her do 3 days a week max, but do yoga, restorative, do biking, do hiking, do gentle things that are fun for you and fun for your family. And that's all she did. I mean, her diet was already dialed in. We did look at her gut. We didn't see any infections there. You know, we knew that there was no insulin problem. The carbs were not an issue. And she got pregnant just by simply reducing the training. And then another small group of people are women specifically, that were just going too low carb. So I had several women that were on a ketogenic diet. And some would argue, well, our ancestors, they could have been ketogenic, right? They were out in the prairies eating the bison, and they may not have had access to potatoes and whatever else. But I do believe that some carbs are beneficial and necessary for fertility and for healthy pregnancy. So I had some women that were on keto for a long time. All we did is just add in some starch, organic white rice. We did some potatoes every once in a while, and boom, they got pregnant, and we didn't change anything else. This is, of course, after we do the whole functional medicine workup, which you and I will talk about in a minute. That was after we did all that. Then we tweaked the diet, and then boom, she got pregnant.